Hello and welcome to the From Field to Freelance YouTube series. This video is going to be offered in English, as you will very clearly see, and then I will basically be recording the same content in Spanish. So for all of you out there who are confused and they're like, wait, I thought this was going to be offered in Spanish. Don't worry, that's coming as well. But this first video in the series is really just meant to be an introduction to myself, to this work, and then I'm going to provide a basic framework and some best practices, principles that I believe will help you in making sure that you get the most out of this experience, and that also just help you with follow through. A lot of times people will kind of drop off of these things pretty early on, and it's because they don't have some of these other support systems in place. So I want to help reduce some of that for you and make sure that you're getting the most out of this experience and that this is a wild success for you. So who am I? I am Emily Reno. I am a Lawrence, Kansas native. I was a Minnesota transplant for the last 6 years or so. And then over the last 14 months, I was a digital nomad. So I sold all of my belongings and basically left to go to India to study yoga. Spent a few months in Australia with my sister and was just kind of hopping around from one country to another while continuing to manage my work remotely through my business called Mezclada, which means mixed in Spanish. And so Mezclada really works to reduce barriers to land and capital for aspiring farmers. And the way that I do that is through storytelling, so the Transcendent Farmer podcast, through food systems consulting with clients mostly based in kind of the upper Midwest and really Minnesota within the US. And then I also offer direct kind of online education for farmers focused on holistic business development and kind of personal growth and development and spirituality, which obviously that's part of what you are experiencing right now as you're currently participating in some of that education that I offer. So the niche that I really seek to fill with my work is this gap that I have seen in all of the assistance that is being provided to people who want to start a food or farm business, which is really in the space of mental health and well-being. Because what I've noticed is that while there are a lot of resources that are out there for people, most of them are focused on these really technical aspects of what it means to start a business. But a lot of times we are not talking about this softer side of ag and that personal side of ag that is really affecting everything that happens on a day-to-day basis in our business. And so that's really where I want to focus a lot of my energy and kind of take what I've learned over many, many years of listening to different content, investing in this stuff myself, and seeing really impressive results in my life. So my goal in being able to offer this YouTube series for you is to help you reach your goals faster, because a lot of the structural barriers that are causing people to not have access to the resources that they need, those things are so ingrained in the systems that I really don't expect those to change overnight, or unless we see some kind of massive disruption. And so what I'm wanting to offer to you is a different approach that is a little bit more immediate, maybe allows you to operate outside of the system or navigate it more quickly, and also thinking about how is it that we're tapping into tools that are available to us today that haven't been available before, and thinking about our intentional use of those technologies for good that can help you access the resources that you need. So personally, my goal as it relates to my own farming aspirations is to have solid cash flow that is supporting me in my business, because I know that when I have that, I'm going to be in a much better mental state to make more sound business decisions. And honestly, if there's nothing else that you take away from this series, I hope it is that. So I'm going to repeat that again. When I have solid cash flow outside of my production related activities, I'm going to be a much better mental state to make more sound business decisions. That is what I want to be able to offer you and help you create by publishing information and knowledge that you already have in the form of an ebook. And so what I'm going to be doing throughout this process is sharing with you my own planning, writing process, the tools that I'm using, not just for writing, but translating that into a digital ebook. So looking at the design principles, figuring out what are some of the AI tools that are available to us to do that, and then also outlining a marketing and sales strategy. So who is this geared towards? Existing and aspiring farmers. Because even if you're an aspiring farmer, maybe you've already had so much life experience and there's just something that you really want to get out into the world and share with others, right? There's a lot of people that I know that starting a farm is actually their second or third career. So they've amassed a wealth of knowledge, maybe from different industries that they've worked in, or they just have an interesting life story that they want to get out into the world, or other people have told them, like, you should really write a book. So this is definitely for you. If you are an existing or an aspiring freelancer, this is also a great tool for you, or a great series for you. And then if you are an existing or aspiring digital nomad, and the reason is that the nature of the ebook that I will be writing is called How to Become a Digital Nomad. There's so many things I learned over the last 14 months of just figuring things out and making a lot of mistakes. And I want to be able to help people who aspire to do that themselves and just kind of help them maybe not have to go through some of the same pain points that I did and some of the headaches, especially with navigating outside of the US. So it may not necessarily always be applicable to content, for example, to people that are based in other countries, but there are still going to be some main principles that are really helpful no matter where you are based in the world. Lastly, this is for anyone who is interested in learning more about how AI tools can help you get unstuck in your writing process, help you clarify your ideas, and then lastly, to help with that design, marketing, and sales strategy. Before I get further into explaining a little bit more about these principles and kind of the framework for making sure that you get the most out of this experience, I want to share that if you are interested in having greater access to some of the information and tools that I'm providing, I do have what's called the Freelance Farm Pass. That's available for just $40. There is tax added onto that. Basically, you will get a copy of the document that I am using to link all of, the AI tools, the different prompts that I'm using, and then anyone who decides to purchase those will also receive a 10% discount on any future purchases with Mezclada. In today's video, what I'm going to be covering are 10 principles on how to ensure that you will be successful in your mission of writing, designing, and selling your first ebook. And in this video, we're going to cover 5 of them. And if you would like to hear the remaining 5 principles, sign up for the Freelance Pass. Okay, so let's start with this idea of building habits and following through. I wanted to outline a few reasons why people struggle with following through on their goals. And this is something that I covered in another series recently. And it's just so important that I wanted to bring this back into this series as well. So a lot of times we don't necessarily recognize that the experiences that we have had as a child, basically they have been integrated into our subconscious so deeply that when we are responding to challenge as an adult, we are not actually acting from our adult self, but our subconscious child self. So when it comes to being able to do something new or different that gets you out of your comfort zone, a lot of times what happens is you're actually looping on these thought patterns of like telling yourself that you're a certain way or that it's really hard because that's what is familiar to you. And those thought patterns are maybe what kept you in a safe place and feeling loved as a child. But a lot of times we don't even recognize that we're doing that because we have never really taken the time to observe our own thoughts, right? So sometimes that's what's happening is that we're looping on these old thought patterns that really we can decide to let go of. Another piece is overthinking, right? Analysis paralysis, where we just keep getting in our head about creating these like what if scenarios, or we just look at different options, or maybe we're stuck in like research phase. So you just keep collecting information, but then you don't actually ever make a motion or like take action on the information that you are gathering. And some people will do that subconsciously. I'm guilty of that, where it's like, I don't feel like I'm qualified enough in order to teach this thing because I want to feel like I'm an expert, or I need to have a certification in order to feel qualified to share with other people. I think that's one of the wonderful things about how, like, YouTube, for example, has really changed the nature of education today, where it's like you can be an everyday citizen and you're also an expert in something. And as long as you have access to some way of recording yourself and sharing that and putting it out in the world, you can help so many people and you don't even realize that. Another point on this, sometimes people just don't have enough trust in their own track record of success, or they've never taken the time to analyze their own track record of success. And so what's really cool about this is that, you know, my recommendation as an exercise would just be to write down like all of the areas of your life, or maybe specifically as it relates to this, like any kind of writing things that you might have done in the past. You know, write down the successes that you had or the big milestones in order to really focus on that positive and the things that you have accomplished. What's really cool is that within the space of like manifestation, for example, a lot of people talk about this idea of pattern recognition. So if you're able to sort of analyze past things that have happened to you, so like write down over the last year these 10 amazing things that happened in your life, and then try to think through what was happening right before that like amazing thing came through for you. That's what I'm talking about in terms of pattern recognition, because you'll start to see that there are themes, whether it was in your own thought pattern, you maybe like jumped off a cliff, you took a big leap of faith, you took a huge risk, whatever that thing was. Maybe it was something related to just like trusting in yourself, or like trusting that everything is going to work out, and then it did. You are going to have your own kind of pattern that's really distinct and different from anyone else, but taking that time to kind of self-analyze can be really helpful. Another one is like a lot of people get caught up in evaluation in terms of what is the next step to take. So feeling like it has to be the perfect decision instead of a decision. There's this really lovely saying that I'll probably emphasize a lot throughout the series, which is just that published is better than perfect. And the same thing applies to our writing process. Just like getting words out on paper is the most important step to get started, instead of being like, oh, this, you know, sentence or this paragraph, it has to be just right in order for me to actually feel comfortable moving forward, or like I have to revise this before I can keep writing, right? So this idea is like just keep moving forward and just kind of like getting over yourself of it's not going to be perfect from the start. That's what editing is for later. Another piece is just a lack of clarity. So a lot of times, you know, one of these key principles of just creating things that you want in your life, or just making sure that you're going in the right direction, is having that sense of what you want, but getting really, really detailed about it, down to almost the feeling of what it's like in your body before you've ever even had that thing happen to you. This is one of the principles that I've really taken away from a membership that I'm part of called the Wealth Vibe. Shout out to Taylor Eaton, your work is amazing. And I feel like it's become just such a big part of how I really see this work and what I'm doing, what I'm helping people to try to do as it relates to this, right? So like, what is the feeling like of having written your ebook, of like looking on the screen and seeing this beautiful cover page with your name on it? Maybe there's an epic photo or some cool graphic that just is emblematic of who you are and the message that you want to convey to the world. Like, what does that feel like in your body? That's what I'm talking about. Another one is this idea of maybe like they aren't sure of what taking aligned action means. And so when we're thinking about, you know, this idea of building habits and following through, if you, one, don't have clarity around where you are going, you're not really going to have a clear sense of what are the steps, or what is a step that can get me closer in that direction. And so really having that like end point in mind to start is great. But then thinking about, okay, an aligned decision is something that it feels like I'm being carried towards that goal as opposed to away. Because some people, you could just like take action willy-nilly, do all kinds of things, but there's no real direction or like reason or rhyme to what you are doing. So that's what I'm talking about there. And then lastly, this idea of connecting with the feeling of what it's like to have that thing before it actually happens. A lot of times what happens is people feel really uncomfortable or they feel really unsafe when they're tapping into that somatic side, right? So connecting to your physical body. And there's so many reasons why that can be true. From personal experience, I know what that's like. This idea of dissociation where you separate yourself from the physical sensation because it's not safe to be in your body. And that definitely can require some additional assistance, professional help in order to be able to do that well. But there are also other kind of more maybe informal ways too that you could experiment with that, such as meditation, breath work is really helpful, yoga, just different kinds of movement practices that are really gentle and force you to be an observer of what is happening in your body. It seems like it's the first step of just kind of tapping in and kind of reassuring yourself that, like, yes, it is okay to feel and the world isn't going to end. Nobody's going to hurt me, right? Whatever you need to say to continue to feel safe in your own body is primordial, right? It's just like super, super important. Okay, so moving on, I just want to emphasize this idea that you can consume content every day, all day long, for so many hours of the day. But if you do not take action on what you are learning, you might as well not have consumed that information at all. And so I want you to think about this YouTube series in the same way. Do something, right? Like share it with people, great, but do something with it, because I would love to see the comments of these videos fill up with people's success stories about how this is, transform their writing process or how it's helping them move forward in a process that they never thought was possible. Like that's the kind of stuff that I want to see. So take action, do something with it, right? And these next steps that I'm going to outline will really help you think about, okay, how can I carve out that space and time to make sure that I am successful in this endeavor? Before I launch into these principles, I really want to lift up some of the people and places and resources that have inspired this list. I am standing on the shoulders of so many brilliant individuals, and there's absolutely no way I would be able to put together this list without them. So big shout out to James Clear with Atomic Habits. We're going to be leaning heavily on some of those things as it relates to this particular episode. There's a book called Soundtracks that I would love for you to read or listen to. Very, very good kind of foundational piece to this work as well. To Be Magnetic is another one. It's a membership site that really goes deep on like the neuroscience behind manifestation and does a lot of work as it relates to just like deep healing. And then Marie Forleo's B School has been super helpful over the years as it relates to this. And then, as I mentioned before, Taylor Eaton's Wealth Vibe membership has been very, very helpful. There is so many other amazing podcasts that I've listened to, books that I read probably over the last 6 to 8 years that have really influenced some of what I'm going to be sharing with you in this YouTube series. And I wish that I had a master list of my favorites. Sometimes I say them and sometimes I don't, but I will be sharing some of that information as part of the Freelance Farm Pass as well. So if you are interested in going deeper in some of those things, I know I will be sharing some of that information as part of that pass as well. So huge value, really excited to be able to share that. Okay, so let's get into these principles. I'm gonna go over 5 of them here and then another 5 for those of you who have purchased the Farmland Access Pass. And just to let you know, that will remain open for as long as this YouTube series is going. So it doesn't matter if this has been published and 2 weeks have gone by, you can still join, no worries at all. Principle number 1, share what you are learning with other people as fast as possible after you have learned it. This really comes back to just like teaching pedagogy and learning frameworks. They always say that if you can teach someone else something, it's going to make it more concrete in your own mind. So maybe there's a way for you to share what you're learning as quickly as possible with others who are in your network. Maybe it's by posting to social media, say, hey, this is what I learned from this thing. Or maybe it's a friend who is also trying to write their first ebook. And maybe they're not actually watching any of these videos, but maybe they're like, hey, give me the Cliff Notes version, right? As you're learning about these things. So that could be an option for you. Principle number 2, block off time in your calendar for the things that you want to prioritize. A lot of times it's just one of those things where it's kind of like set it and forget it. Whether it's like a recurring event, for example, for 2 hours on every Friday, this is going to be the time that I work on this ebook. If you don't have it written down in your schedule, it's so much less likely to happen. Principle number 3, continuously assess your to-do list in terms of your return on investment. What is bringing revenue towards your business? What brings you the most joy? What would you hire out first? What do you suck at? Like, be honest with yourself about this, right? And set goals around maybe what you want your schedule to look like versus what it looks like right now. The reason I'm saying that is that, for example, as it relates to writing your ebook, maybe what you've recognized is that as your current schedule stands, you actually don't have capacity to do this. But if you're taking stock of all of the activities that you are doing in a day, maybe you have an opportunity to ask for help on one of those daily chores or whatever it is, and create that container of time around, okay, I'm going to request assistance for these 8 weeks in this particular area of my life. And it's because I've made a master list of my to-do list to figure out what is it really that I'm doing here that is bringing the most value to others, or maybe bringing the most value to this process. This is also just another good one in terms of thinking about the dream life that you want to create. Maybe writing is actually part of something you want to be doing on a regular basis, in addition to some of those production related goals that you have, for example, in which case building that habit right now of consistent writing is going to help you in the long term. Principle number 4, do a self-audit on your own thoughts and identify opportunities to catch yourself in the moment and rewrite them. This is inspired by the soundtracks book that I mentioned at the beginning. And so an example that he provided, the author, that I really enjoy is this idea of, like, a lot of times at the end of a workday, for example, what people will do is they're like, oh gosh, I have so much work to do tomorrow. I have so much left to do. It's so overwhelming. That's an option of how you can present this information or how you can think about it. Or you can tell yourself, wow, I left myself some really amazing projects to work on tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to digging into those. Those are 2 completely different narratives, very different energy. And so you have the capacity to stop yourself in the moment, rewrite that thing, and figure out, how can I reframe the way that I'm thinking about my current reality, my current situation, so that I can frame it to be more positive. Because generally speaking, if you are in a more positive state, you're going to attract more positive energy. And that's really what I would like you to be able to bring to this work as well. Have people get so excited about you writing your ebook. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna tell all my friends, or I'm gonna share your posts on social media when you're talking about it, whatever that looks like. Because when they see that you're down, maybe they're just going to want to try to cheer you up, but maybe that's as far as it goes, right? We generally don't like to be around people that have just like that really negative energy, because it sort of drains us. Okay, principle number 5, and this one is from Atomic Habits. Focus on getting 1% better every day. Stephen Bartlett actually recently published a book that is kind of based on this. It's like the 1% Better Diary, which I think is brilliant. And it's sort of based on that principle too, is this, if you evaluate everything that you're doing, and you just decide to focus on one simple thing, like how much time it takes me to get ready in the morning, or maybe it's like, I want to have bomb breakfast every day. So I'm going to focus on 1% better on making my eggs perfect, or of, caramelizing my onions, whatever that little thing is. And then it sort of will build over time, but it's this like slow process, so it doesn't seem really overwhelming all at once. All right, so that wraps up the items for principles to get you started, and hopefully will provide you with a better framework of how you can be successful in this. For those that have the extended version with the Farmland Pass, you will be able to get that in sort of a virtual way. I think I'm going to be building out a Google folder for that. Otherwise, I'm going to provide you with a preview of what is coming in the next episode. So now that we've made it through this list, We are going to be in the next episode talking about the benefits of writing an ebook. And then I'm going to outline my process for you of how I'm going to be planning and outlining my ebook and just what that process is looking like. And again, it's something to offer for you as a template, an idea, but I really want to emphasize that you should make this your own. Build the systems that work for you, and whatever ways you want to riff on what I'm offering, please do that. Do that for you and own it. Don't feel like, oh, I'm doing this wrong. There is no wrong way. The wrong thing is to not do anything. All right. With that, I really appreciate your time and your attention, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.